So the Stanford Healthcare Design Challenge is essentially kind of taking on the style of a hackathon. And so we were inspired by this because only 7% of projects actually had any activity 6 months after a hackathon ended. So our goal is to try to overcome this and make it so that we're able to give you guys the resources to be able to take your ideas and actually turn them into a reality. So in order to do this, we want to bridge the ideation to implementation gap. And we do this by democratizing knowledge through this open learning series, expanding access through our vast mentor pool, which will open up in October, and through engaging industry decision makers in our judging panel. We also provide critical follow-on support, which is provided to winning teams, and they're given additional support for customer delivery and the go-to market, an advisory board composed of C-suite or senior executive level mentors, and essentially support to turn their ideas into a reality. So here's our team. We have people from all across Stanford, from the School of Humanities and Sciences, schools of engineering, and doing all sorts of degrees. You'll see some MDs, JDs, BS, and even a PhD as well. So there's a lot, I guess, of interdisciplinary action going on behind the scenes at SHDC. Essentially, this year, our plan is to have a more global, expanded competition. So we started off our flagship competition last year, only focusing on America, but this year we're expanding internationally. So this challenge is open to any student at any university anywhere, and we're so excited to have everyone apply this year. Here you'll see our prompt, which focuses on financially sustainable and scalable healthcare solutions that addresses the healthcare needs of a population experiencing geographic transitions. So for example, this could be voluntary and involuntary migrants, and this could be within both a domestic or international context. So please feel free to check out our website, including, some thought questions to drive this prompt, and see the application form on our website, which you can have here below in the QR code. And then just to quickly go through the timeline, our prompt was released last week, and we're already into the September Learning Series. I think this is our 5th talk, and then applications will be due on September 22nd. Then after that, we'll have the virtual competition on October 6th to 17th, and there will culminate in a demo day on October 17th. We will be able to hear from all of the different healthcare leaders that we're going to have. Below, you'll see also some of our September programming, so the talks that we still have going on. Later today, we have another talk from Dr. Paul Weiss, and we really hope to see you guys there. Okay, that appears to be it. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now I will start by introducing Zahra. So it is my honor to introduce you, Zahra Badey, a leader who brings deep experience across startups, biotech, and AI. You have led strategy, product, and engineering to deliver transformative solutions in digital healthcare, as well as robotic automation for pathology labs and advanced therapies in large pharma. Known for pairing bold vision with practical execution, you equip teams with strategies to build, scale, and deliver real impact. So in today's conversation, we're going to explore how to navigate entrepreneurship, product development, and healthcare innovation in today's AI-driven landscape, with a focus on real-world impact. We'll cover AI's evolving role in healthcare, common startup traps, and the critical importance of trust, privacy, and workflow integration for adoption. All of you attendees will gain frameworks and playbooks for building AI healthcare solutions and for aligning teams, funding, and strategy to maximize the impact and accessibility of your solutions. Thank you so much, and now we'll pass it on to you, Zahra. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for this introduction. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here with you all today. We're at such an important moment for AI in healthcare. The tools are maturing and the needs are urgent. And the opportunity is huge. You already know about my background, but one fact I will share is that I lived in 4 different countries, each with very different healthcare systems. Some easy to navigate, other much harder. So the theme, like Zainab mentioned, of SDHC this year is design healthcare solutions that address the need of a population experiencing geographic transitions. And I think there are incredible opportunities to use AI to help people navigate new systems, new healthcare systems, and provide the infrastructure needed to address some of these big global challenges as well. So the goal of this session is to give you a set of practical tools and frameworks you can use as you build your solutions. So you can create impactful AI healthcare solutions and hopefully thrive as fulfilled founders as well. Uh, Outcomes. But what I think makes a difference is pairing bold vision with disciplined execution. So testing early, working with the right collaborators, and aligning product and sale roadmaps, basically. One of the CEOs I worked with used to always say, products and sales are the two legs of the company. You can't work if they're not in sync, basically. And that's exactly right. If the product and sales are misaligned, it hurts the entire company. So if startups are hard, why bother? Because the win isn't just in the outcome, it's in the growth, the learning, and the experience that you gain, and that prepares you for even bigger challenges down the road. So the key is to be ready. When the right opportunity comes, this preparation lets you lock it in, and with a little bit of luck, you can hopefully achieve those moonshots that you're looking for. So let's look at the state of AI in healthcare. So the signals indicate that we are really at an inflection point. The AI healthcare market is set to grow from 29 billion in 2024 to over 500 billion by 2032. We're seeing hospitals allocating up to 25% of their IT budget to AI. And at the same time, investors are doubling down on companies that can build defensible, adoption-ready solutions. So the opportunity is massive, but it's not evenly distributed. There is lots of competition, and the winners will be those who solve real problems and real pain points with actual customers, while navigating regulation, trust, and adoption challenges as well. So let's take a step back and look at just how fast AI has evolved over the past decade. So back in 2013, deep learning advancements started transforming computer vision and natural language processing. In 2017, transformer models completely changed the game. They've unlocked the modern wave of NLP applications. In 2020, large language models began to emerge, and by 2022, ChatGPT brought generative AI into the mainstream, which was truly disruptive. Suddenly, millions of people are using LLMs in their everyday lives. And in 2023, we started seeing multimodal models like GPT-4 and Gemini that have started analyzing and generating content across multiple modalities, from text, image, video, and code, and so on, and audio as well. And in 2024, we started seeing techniques like retrieval augmented generation, or what we call RAG, and mixture of expert models, which improved accuracy of these models and also allowed them to handle more complex reasoning tasks as well. And today we are entering in a completely new phase, I believe, agents that can plan and execute multi-step workflows with humans in the loop for oversight. And as we steadily move towards more autonomy, we ultimately, at some point, we're going to reach artificial general intelligence or AGI. So the pace has been staggering. In just a decade, we went from using AI, for example, to analyze radiographs, to detect pneumonia, to using it to discover complete new therapies for lung cancer, for example. So the question now is, how is this reshaping healthcare? So let's look at how capital and fundraising reacted to all this AI advancement. So in digital health specifically, we've seen a clear difference between AI-enabled startups and those without AI. So back in 2020, AI-enabled startups were raising about 19% more than their peers. Today, they're raising about 83% more than their peers. So even in a tighter funding climate, investors are showing a clear appetite for defensible AI-powered plays. And what that means for founders is that if you can show both real traction and AI-driven defensibility, you're much more likely to attract capital. So now let's look at how AI changed the way we interact with technology. So back in 2010 and 2014, we had the first wave of voice assistants like Siri and Alexa. They were exciting at the time, but their capabilities were pretty constrained. By 2020, we saw the rise of the no-code and low-code tools like Zapier and Bubble and so on. So more people were able to automate workflows without having to learn how to code fully. In 2022, ChatGPT and the other chatbots introduced a new type of user platform, which is the prompt itself. So instead of clicking buttons and filling forms, we are simply interacting in natural language through a conversational interface. And what we're seeing in 2025 is AI agents emerging as true co-builders, automating entire workflows. So these huge shifts is really pivotal, I believe. And we are going from so basically we went from assistants that could barely set reminder back in a decade ago to agents that can co-build and automate complex workflows. And this is what I think is opening the door for new kind of healthcare innovations. So for example, an agent that can support the entire patient journey from intake to discharge. Now, all of this potential comes with real challenges, especially in healthcare, where mistakes can be catastrophic. So I start with what I call involuntary trusts. That is when an assistant can speak fluently, sounding like a doctor, but it can hallucinate and give misinformation, and that can be very misleading to patients. And this hallucination trap is dangerous because at the end of the day, LLMs are just predicting tokens. They're not performing medical reasoning. So that raises the question about liability and regulations. We saw recently the first law case that was filed against OpenAI over the death of a child. We'll probably see more of these cases in the future. And one thing to keep in mind here is that there is a critical distinction between AI used for guidance versus AI making a diagnosis. So it's really important to look at the regulatory requirements. Do you need FDA approvals, any HIPAA compliance, clinical validation? What do you need for the tools you are building that cross into the medical decision making, basically? So you need to design really with guardrails in mind. For example, human in the loop, clear disclaimers, implementing techniques like RAG and filtering, the identification for grounding, and explainability for establishing trust and confidence in the outputs of these models. And in healthcare especially, trust and safety are adoption drivers. So without them, you can build solutions, but nobody will adopt them. So let's take a step back and look at the healthcare system as a whole. And as you probably know, it's a complex, big ecosystem, really, with lots of moving parts and stakeholders. So we have the patient care side of things. This includes like the electronic health records, bedside care, telehealth, and increasingly the personalized therapies that are tailored to an individual patient. In the back end, we have research and clinical work, for example, trials, drug discovery, diagnostics, manufacturing. And then on the operations side, we have claim processing, regulatory compliance, and supply chain management. And finally, another category is the advanced interventions, for example, surgical robotics and lab automation, which are helping streamline some of the manual processes and improving quality and effectiveness and the efficiency of some of these lab workflows, essentially. And all of these areas are really ripe for innovation with AI. So where does AI and generative AI fit into this healthcare ecosystem? So at the patient level, one of the most straightforward application is the AI assistant or co-pilot. So these, they can document visits, personalize care plans, and with generative AI, we can also synthesize information from electronic health records and patient conversations to create more comprehensive visit summaries. And all of this makes the experience much smoother for both the clinicians and the patients as well. In research, we are seeing AI accelerate drug discovery in clinical trials. So you can match, for example, patients with the right studies or interpret huge amounts of data like biomedical literature and things like that. And it can also inform decisions that save costly cycles of trials, for example, or repetitive treatments as well. Also generative AI creates high quality synthetic patient data that's really useful because it helps address some of the privacy concerns, but also fill a gap where there isn't enough data, for example, rare diseases. And on the operation side, we have AI optimizing claim processing and detecting fraud, automating reporting, and so on. And it's enabling really efficiencies across the board. And the last category is advanced interventions. And there we are seeing AI automate complex workflows and integrate multimodal data from imaging, sensors, and so on to enable interventions that were simply not possible before. So we're seeing a true transformation across the board. And for teams who are building in this space, every layer of the healthcare system, from the bedside to the lab to the back office, is open for innovation. So let's see how we build products that stick. So the typical path is to find a problem, really good pain points, prototype it, run a pilot, and then scale. And of course, this is not always linear. Parts of the process are iterative, and sometimes you may have to take some detours on the way. But one key expectation is today is the implementation speed. With all these AI tools and capabilities, building has become easier, faster, and it's really important to move quickly without skipping some of the essential validation steps in the way. And success is not just about launching a product, it's about measure the retention, workflow efficiency, and also in some cases, clinical outcomes. And those are the things that matter really for the end user and the patients. And the main takeaways here are on human-centered design that drives basically adoption. So if what you're building cannot be fitted in a workflow or solve a real user need, it will simply not stick. And if the end user needs to rethink an entire workflow, it becomes a barrier to adoption. The other takeaway is to iterate fast and scale responsibly. Iterating fast helps you learn, but when scaling, only scale if you have real traction that requires scaling, otherwise you're wasting effort. And then the third takeaway is that evidence-backed pilots will reduce your risk and help you build trust with your partners as well. So the good news is that today you can translate your ideas to demos very easily with AI-based tools. For example, you can quickly build a lightweight healthcare assistant using AI. This diagram shows you the components at the core. You will have an LLM that interacts with the users through queries and responses. Then the assistant knowledge comes from various sources, medical literature, guidelines, or some proprietary data. And to make the responses more accurate and context-aware, we often use RAG, retrieval augmented generation, which pulls the relevant information dynamically as well. We can also fine-tune the models with domain-specific data or even train the model from scratch. However, in most cases, the cost is not justifiable to do this. And another option is to use reinforcement learning from human feedback, which helps align those assistants with the right behavior and the safety requirements. And the key here is that a simple prototype lets you test the user interaction loops and get feedback quickly. Now, let's take a look at how we might structure a more complex AI system for healthcare using some of the latest AI technologies, for example, AI agents. So we can structure a system like you are seeing here. At the top, you have the orchestration layer, and this layer will contain the agents that coordinate the system actions, essentially routing queries to the right specialists. And then you have the domain agents. These are domain-specific agents these are our specialist agents, effectively. For example, we can have each one of them handle the categories of our system, but that's just one way of doing it. You can structure those agents in the best way that fits your specific system and use case. And these agents can determine what tools and data sources they need. For example, this could be APIs, access to health records or trial databases or supply chain logs, and then call to these tools to complete the task that they have at hand. And that's really the power of agents, that they can find which tools they need by themselves, and they can make those calls to these tools as well. What you end up with here is a clean, modular, and scalable agentic architecture that caters to a complex system, but with each part being very focused and manageable as well. Okay, so now that you have a product development framework in place, the next step is making sure that you're building a product that aligns with your customer needs. Or in other words, how do you reach product market fit? So the key to product market fit is solving the right problem for the right users. In healthcare, that means starting with a real pain point from patients, clinics, or health organizations. Next, you need to find the sweet spots where your solution has a real impact and is easy enough for a user to adopt. And one of the things you can do is co-design your solution with users to accelerate that adoption and build that trust as well. And one thing you really need to do is validate your solution before scale. As I said, otherwise you are wasting effort unnecessarily. You can use prototypes, pilots to test your ideas and gather feedback and iterate quickly, and that's possible today. those feedback loops you create during this process are really important to learn what works and what doesn't, so that you can make informed decisions and refine your market product fit. And also be prepared to pivot. Don't be stuck to one idea if you can't achieve that product market fit. It is better to adjust early than to scale a solution that just simply is not going to stick and is not going to solve, the right pain points for people. So once you reached your product market fit, the next question is, how do you protect it? And that's where defensible modes come in. These are the things that make your company hard to replicate or displace. So how do you go from adoption to sustainable impact? What I'm showing here are some of the modes that protect your growth at each stage of your company, from inception to maturity. And capital is one of them. You need capital for compute, infrastructure, tooling, and it allows you to scale faster and get the resources you need and innovation you need to reinforce all these other modes. Expertise and people. People are critical, especially at the early stages, because they bring that domain expertise, the speed you need, and the execution that will set your team apart and drive early success. Early success is really hard. Locking these first customers is really hard. Next comes technology and integrations. As you grow, you're looking at your intellectual property, what inventions you have, partnerships, who are your partners, and a robust technical infrastructure that allows you to scale, basically. One of the most powerful modes is data and trust, especially when this data is proprietary, workflow specific, and enriched by feedback loops, because this creates insights and performance that your competitor can't easily replicate. It would take them time, and it would take them working with those users to gain those insights, and that's very hard for them to do and see you basically from where you are at. So when thinking about well, there is one last mode before I move to that, which is go-to-market and platform lock-in. And that's really important as you mature. Your brand, trust, and workflow ownership, these strengthen your position. So basically, if users rely on your platform for their key workflows, it becomes much harder for competitors to access those workflows. So when you think about ideas to solve, think also about, well, what will be the modes that make your idea defensible and enable it basically to compete. Okay, so we've covered identifying the real pain points, building products, achieving product market fit, and establishing modes. The next step is understanding where your opportunity lies and how to capture it. That means looking at the market, your business model, and your go-to-market strategy. So these are the levers that turn your product from a solution into a scalable business. For market sizing, you need to focus on your year one SOM. That is your service obtainable market. That's the concrete, basically reachable customer group. Who are you going to sell to in reality, basically? This keeps your efforts realistic and measurable. So it helps you also plan better. The TAM is useful, but just to understand how big of an opportunity that is and support your thesis when you're pitching, basically. It keeps you happy as well. For your business model, You can choose from freemium, B2B, B2C, or B2B2C. The main thing is to pick a model that aligns with your product and users and your revenue goals as well. And then iterate and learn. Sometimes you may need to change your business model on the way as well. For the go-to-market strategy, especially in the early stages, you want to go with a beachhead approach, basically finding a wedge or a vertical, basically, or a niche, where you can gain traction very quickly. And once you build momentum in that niche, then you can expand horizontally into adjacent markets or segments as well. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can look at proven templates from other companies. For example, you can start with a pilot, look at payer reimbursement and scale from there. You can have a partnership, go through clinical trial, then integrate the solution. And there are other pathways that you can look at as well. But the goal is to create a clear stepwise path to adoption and also revenue while minimizing your risk and your spend. Now, let's look at fundraising today. Investors are funding traction, defensibility, to two things. They want to see that your product basically solves the real problems. They want to know that this is a defensible solution, has some moat, and that you have a sound go-to-market strategy, and that your team can execute effectively. So I believe these are the things that are really important. So be clear on your funding expectations and milestones. Know how much capital you need to reach to the next meaningful step, and what proof points you'll show along the way to convince your investors and partners and so on. Some of these proof points are solution validation, for example, clear reimbursement path, an intellectual property portfolio that's solid, peer-reviewed publications, for example, and adoption metrics that demonstrate real-world use of your product. Also focus on capital efficiency and the clear path to revenue. Investors today want to see that you can achieve impact without burning unnecessary cash, and that you can generate real traction for your product. If you can't sell it, you can build it, but it's not going to be used. So it's important to raise also from partners that share your mission and understand the healthcare adoption cycles, because sometimes these are long. For some projects, it can take 6 months before you secure your first pilot or partner. And you probably already know that there are multiple sources to raise capital from, and also to have some perks and benefits. You can look at grants, which are non-dilutive. You can look at accelerators. These typically come with some cash and benefits as well, in terms of credits for compute, building your infrastructure. Apologies, there's some there's some gardening going on. Can you hear me still? Okay.
Yes, good.
Bad timing. It's a Monday. Okay. From VCs, you can raise from VCs as well, and strategic partners, for example, medical institutions and corporates that have venture arms as well. The other option is to bootstrap, of course, and grow organically. This is a slower path, but it's actually more feasible today, especially that the barrier to building products is lower with all the AI advancements. And also for those products that don't require a big investment in terms of upfront capital, like for hardware or a deep research. you can build a sustainable business bootstrapping with the right partners, of course. The other thing I wanted to talk about is some of the common traps that startups hit along the way, whether in healthcare or in general as well. One of those traps is building technology that's not solving a real problem. Of course, it's going to go to waste, so don't do it. Work closely with partners and users. Another one is overlooking reimbursement paths and regulation. These paths and regulatory requirements are really important in healthcare. A reimbursement path can be your adoption ticket, basically. And the regulatory requirements, if they're not met, they're a barrier to adoption. Integration is another big one. So underestimating just how hard your system is going to fit into existing workflows, whether clinical or operational, because that can kill your adoption as well. And there are more, can see them there. I would like to touch on what works instead. So what works is solving an urgent pain point for an actual customer, staying lean and iterating fast, building trust at every stage, and testing your go-to-market strategy early before you've burned through your time and capital. This is really important. You have to achieve your milestones before you run out of money. Okay, so I would like to just take a quick look at the opportunity in AI healthcare delivery specifically, given the theme of the challenge this year. Enterprise AI buying activity in healthcare is accelerating rapidly, according to a recent survey from Flare Capital Healthcare executive survey. We have 83% of organizations that plan to increase their tech or AI budget over the next 12 months. This is a recent review, it's from August this year. 75% intend to buy AI from vendors and startups rather than relying on incumbents or building in-house. This is good news for founders. And really, the questions that your team needs to think about is, well, what are the pain points that we can solve? How will we build trust and adoption among our user base? Who are the right partners to grow with? That's a wrap. Yeah, thank you for listening. I think I'm over time. It's about right.
Don't worry about it. We're just in time actually to get started with our Q&A. So I just wanted to first say thank you so much for this incredible presentation. Like as someone who I think doesn't come from a more traditional like AI background, this was incredibly informative. And I also really liked like all of the images like kind of guiding through the talk as well. That was incredible. So thank you so much. And we're going to open it up now for questions. So if anyone in the audience has anything to ask Zahra, please put it in the chat and we'll get to it soon. But hopefully now we'll start with some questions that we had from ourselves. And so one thing that I was wondering was like the beginning part where you were talking about how the AI healthcare scene is expanding like aggressively and like really quickly. I just wonder which, I guess, subdomains do you think have, I guess, the greatest potential for growth? Like, where do you see will have the most rapid growth in the next 5 years? Where would you say AI is still overpromised and underdelivered? And are there any areas in healthcare where specialist AI models are not just like preferred, but could also be like the go-to like method for safety and accuracy? What is your opinion on like which would be the most important subdomain?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most important subdomains, I believe, there is one that's really obvious. That's the virtual care and patient-facing co-pilots. If you can build cost-effective healthcare solutions that are remote, and if you can deliver pilots that are really focused on specific use cases and address those, specific pain points really well in a focused manner. I think that's really there is a really a great opportunity there, and we're going to see lots of specialized co-pilots and also lots of cost-effective remote care for patients.
Mhm.
That's really, I think, very helpful also for solving some of the problems that the theme of this year focuses on, which is helping displaced populations globally as well. The second subdomain is on the operation side, automating admin processes like claims and clinical documentation. So there is more to be done there, and that's another one that's going to see rapid growth, I believe. And then the clinical trial matching and drug discovery. So protocols um, driving these clinical trials and drug discovery and up to the basically drug development and validation and so on. So all of that will see also rapid growth. Um, what may not grow as fast is the diagnostics part, mainly because it requires more regulatory steps that can be a little bit of a hurdle. Although we are seeing, for example, the FDA adopt internally AI. For example, they have ELSA that's now helping with some of the processes internally. So hopefully we'll see speed, some speed injected as well on the regulatory side as well. Now, where AI overpromised and under-delivered, for example, fully autonomous diagnosis and treatment, we're still early there. Precision medicine at scale, we're still not seeing personalized, for example, cancer therapies at scale. We're not seeing these solutions yet. And also interoperability. We are still dealing with fragmented software in the stack, whether it's for AHR integration tools. Um, it's still very fragmented space, and interoperability is not sleek yet. And your last question was specialist AI models that are necessary. So these ones, I believe, where accuracy is critical, and general LLMs are not going to deliver, that's where specialist models will play a key role. So, for things like pathology, radiology, genomics, also things that require very large data sets to reach a diagnosis or a solution or a decision, basically. The other area where I see specialist models play a key role is in proprietary workflows, especially those that require FDA regulatory approvals, because it's a lengthy, it's a process that can be lengthy and that require lots of steps and lots of effort. I think there is lots of room to bring specialized AI models that focus on specific proprietary workflows to help, streamline some of these processes as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I know that was a lot, but I think that kind of just like diving into the subdomains is really going to be helpful for the attendees and like I guess the people participating in the competition to be able to know like where to focus. So thank you for sharing. I wanted to also just like kind of dive a little bit more into what you're talking about, kind of like the I guess hindrance that regulatory compliance has I guess traditionally been. And I was just wondering, like we're typically sorry, considering regulations as like something that's keeping AI back. But I'm just wondering, like, do you believe that there are certain, I guess, types of AI or startups in which you believe that it could actually be a competitive advantage if handled right to have like these regulatory barriers? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, AI is a new technology that everybody is still, wrapping their head around, and basically internal workflows in various organizations are catching up. Some already implemented AI, like you've seen the FDA announce ELSA use for their internal AI use. So I think as these organizations catch up with AI and implement AI internally, we're going to see a lot of efficiency brought into the FDA and regulatory space in general. Um, we've seen, for example, frameworks being put together to handle software as a medical device, for example, with like good machine learning practices. So guiding the principle of using AI in these software as a medical device, for example. So there is lots of infrastructure, and there are frameworks that are emerging to support accelerating the regulatory approvals for these products. Um, I think I think it's an asset having this regulatory validation and approvals is a big asset for a startup. If you um, achieve clinical, for example, validation with a specific partner, this is something that's basically lock-in. It can become a moat that locks this customer with you because they don't want to go into the effort of going through another clinical validation with another provider. So I think that can be definitely an advantage. There are also some techniques that allow you to um, basically reach a full validation progressively. So, for example, if you're building software, maybe initially you want to release it as a guidance software rather than a diagnosis software while you are validating your solution and while you are working on those regulatory steps. If you are building a medical device, maybe you want to start by providing it as a class one medical device to start, getting some data and testing while working through, getting approvals for class two and so on. So yes, these are some of the things you can do, but I definitely think it's an asset and it's a moat to have those regulatory validations.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for clarifying. And so just moving on to quickly like a different topic, we have actually a question from the audience. So Franz would like to ask, I'd like to possibly receive some advice on where one could start with implementing AI in African communities, particularly in the health education sector, where the language barrier acts as an issue between the healthcare workers and community members. So, in essence, where could they start in implementing AI to democratize knowledge across African communities? So, I think we're just exploring like kind of like how language barriers have impeded in the proliferation of language learning models in healthcare and how we can overcome this.
Yeah, and I'd go, it's a great question, by the way. And I think the first, thing that comes to mind is the assistant space, the AI assistant or co-pilot space. Why? Because these assistants can also handle multiple languages. So whatever you build, fronting it with an assistant that's capable to translate between different languages will be really your kind of glue or interface. And then behind it in the back end, you can build any solution. So think about it as two pieces, the glue, which is the translation layer, and that can be backed by an LLM that will translate, and then your backend solution.
Awesome. I'd love to jump in for a question quickly. I really enjoyed your presentation too, as someone who doesn't have an AI background. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the idea of like algorithmic drift in healthcare AI applications. Do you think developers or teams should prioritize like the monitoring of a model for the short-term use, or kind of look to see how patient populations will evolve and consider 20, 30 years from now, how well their models will be doing in these applications?
Great question. So I think monitoring models is always a great thing to do and an important thing to do, because we want to ensure that these models are not drifting, they're not starting to hallucinate over time, that the data that they are using is not garbage and is not basically contaminated uh, as time goes. So I think it's really important to monitor for drift, but also monitor for other aspects like, privacy and safety, and perhaps do some red teaming to ensure that your model um, cannot be basically hacked and start, misbehaving. So aligning the model and making sure that it doesn't drift is really important. Um, I think um, I think it's really important to ground it with basically verify the data as you go, and make sure that the data still align with your targets, and use that data basically um, to reset also your model if you detect any drifts or any unexpected behaviors. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, perfectly. And then I just have a quick follow-up. I'd be interested to hear, like, if you had to summarize what a defensible AI product looks like applied to the idea of immigrants and refugees, like, how would you do that in a sentence or two?
Oh, that's a
It's a
that's a
tricky one. Yeah.
that's a tricky question. I think if I were to build a defensible AI solution for the migrant and displaced population um, at the global level, um, I will first think about a pain point. What are the pain points that we're looking at? What does a migrant or a displaced person needs when they first land in a new environment with a new healthcare system? It could be urgent care. It could be someone with chronic conditions, so they need immediate healthcare for their chronic condition. It could be like things around um, allergies and intolerance, because we're in a new environment, we'll be reacting to new allergens and new foods. So I will try to first pick, okay, what are the changes that these people are experiencing? What is their condition? Do they have small children that are likely to require urgent care more often? Do they have a chronic condition? That sort of thing. And once I've identified, that problem that I want to solve, I will think, well, okay, how can I make it accessible? A remote application will be much more accessible. Um, in terms of cost, how can I make it low cost, or how can we find the option to fund it through like foundation donations or things like this? How can we provide for some of the care without, at low cost or as a freemium? And in terms of the AI itself, well, the tools that we've talked about, I mean, you can build your application with an LLM and some RAG and maybe a little bit of fine tuning, although to move quickly, you probably don't want to fine tune, have to fine tune and or train a model. It's going to be costly. And yeah, and I think thinking about also, in terms of infrastructure, how are you going to support building um, and deploying your product? It's probably going to be a web application that's sitting on a cloud environment. How are you going to look at privacy, keeping this patient information private? and so on. So you may want to look at a sandbox where you host your application, and this sandbox has all the, for example, HIPAA hooks in place and so on. Yeah, so I would just like think about it this way.
Yeah, that was a
And
great answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
build your application and put it in some cloud and start onboarding your users.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. I'll hand it back to Zainab.
Yeah, I think we have time for just one more short question. So I just wanted to really quickly I was wondering, how can a startup demonstrate their maturity and sustainability early on, increase interest from investors even before profitability? And I'm just wondering about this because I know like a lot of us here maybe might not have like large teams of like venture capitalists and like CEOs already on our kind of on our teams. So I'm just interested like in what success metrics AI founders and startup CEOs should focus on kind of like in the first year to make sure that they're able to get investors.
Yeah, so the first year is really important. So success metrics will be in terms of early adopters, for example. So who are your first users? That's really important to have those early users that are going to start working with you and testing your product. Um, I think the clarity of your um, pain point and solution and the depth of your solution as well are really important. Do you, for example, have some um, science backing it? Do you have some um, publications that are, in that? Do you have any IP um, that protects your solution? So yeah, I think the main thing probably is have seen your early adopters and seeing that you are able to cater to what their need and to basically retain them as well. Um, in terms of other metrics that could be around, okay, how many features, for example, you have built, how mature your product is. We can also look at um, the velocity of your team. How fast are you iterating over your product? Where did you start? How fast are you moving? How many features are you adding to your product? That's another metric. Yeah, I think that's probably what I would look at is the product and the user, basically, in the first year.
Okay, that's
Well, the other thing that I am thinking about is also, any partnerships that you have secured, any pilots that you are running with a specific medical institution or with the hospital or that kind of thing. So, do you have any letters of intent as well? Yeah, yeah, and I don't know. It depends on the product, but if, for example, um, you have um, a medical device and it's a class one device, well, did you go through the FDA approval for your class one device, which is the easy, and should be able to achieve within 1 year. Um, at the global level, are there any other regulations that you need to comply with as well? And you don't need to have the validation in place, but you need to have thought about it and started putting, the steps to reach those, uh, regulatory validations um, at the right time, basically within your journey.
Thank you so much for sharing. This was an incredibly amazing talk. I just wanted to really quickly address this one last thing in the Q&A where a student was talking about how as med students, they don't even know how to build an AI assistant. And so I just want to emphasize that kind of like the mission that we have here at SHDC and what we're trying to, I guess, like teach all people is that by building an interdisciplinary team, for example, by having med students, people involved in business and technology, and reaching out to like different students maybe across your campus, hopefully you'll be able to find people that are able to build an AI assistant, and then you guys could like coach each other to make it like more medical focused towards this issue. And then we really wish everyone the best of luck in developing their solutions. So thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great day. Hope
And
to
one
see
thing I would add on that, Zainab, if I may,
you.
if you do not have the expertise to build your AI assistant, I will highly recommend looking at some of the AI tools that are out there that allow you to build actually an AI assistant without having the knowledge on the background of a data scientist or a software engineer. There are tools like Lovable and others. I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find that. And these are no-code platforms, so you don't need to write any code. It's really going on the platforms, um, creating an account, and basically starting to prompt you basically just like prompt the system with what you'd like to build, and it gives you all the code, and in some cases it even deploys the application and hosts it for you, so you don't even need to think about hosting. That's the magic of the AI and the AI tools that have emerged. From a single prompt you can end up with a deployable application that's ready to be used just from a single prompt. So I would encourage you to look at the tools that are available for creating those applications, and also for hosting your application. Um, One thing to keep in mind and to watch for is the privacy aspect. So basically, when you're building um, on a platform, you need to just check that their privacy guidelines align with what you're looking for.
Thank you so much for explaining that as well. I do see that another student has raised their hand, so I know that we are towards the end of time, however, so please feel free, anyone who has any other questions, to reach out to us over email or over Slack, and we will be very prompt in responding and reaching out to anyone needed to help address your questions. So once again, just wrapping it up, we just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we hope to see everyone at the next session.
Thank you so much for organizing, Zainab and Kyle. This is a great session. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.